Hello everyone, Dr. Polaris here. I think it's fair to say that non-avian dinosaurs are well known for their large and sometimes downright gigantic sizes. There is certainly an element of truth to this, with modal mass estimates for Dinosauria as a whole being between 1 and 10 metric tons. This is far larger than the estimate for modern mammals, which the Natural History Museum in London has calculated to be between 2 and 5 kilograms, or up to 11 pounds. Of course, this doesn't mean that there weren't any small Mesozoic dinosaurs, as demonstrated by my recent video on early ceratopsians, many of which were comparable to domestic cats and dogs in size. Some groups of theropods were even smaller, such as the topic of today's episode, the diminutive Alvarezsaurs. These small, slender Maniraptorans are most famous for their late Cretaceous representatives, which possessed very distinctive and unusual anatomical features, such as narrow, elongated jaws equipped with tiny teeth, and incredibly robust, stubby forelimbs that bore greatly enlarged, at times singular claws. Such odd traits have generated a good deal of speculation regarding the potential ecological niches held by these animals, with it generally being thought that Alvarezsaurs may have been the dinosaur equivalents of modern anteaters, utilising their powerful clawed forelimbs to dig into logs and rotting wood in search of termites. However, not all genera may have pursued this kind of lifestyle, as will be discussed later. Like many groups of Maniraptoran Theropods, these animals really seem to have taken off during the early Cretaceous, although their origins almost certainly lie further back in the second half of the Jurassic. The oldest potential member of Alvarezsauria is the genus Haplocyrus from the Middle Jurassic of China, native to the Shishugo Formation between 161 and 158 million years ago. This animal is known from a near-complete holotype specimen, making it one of the best preserved of all Jurassic Coelurosaurs. This individual measured about 2 meters or 6 feet 6 inches long, and weighed about 21 kilograms or 46 pounds. Although it's currently thought that this specimen may have been a juvenile, the snout was relatively elongated and narrow, although not to the same extent as seen in more derived Alvarezsaurs. Its jaws were lined with at least 70 heterodont teeth, which is an unusually high number for a non-avian theropod. The forelimbs were relatively elongated and possessed 3-fingered hands similar to those of other early Coelurosaurs. These traits suggest that Haplocyrus was probably a generalist carnivore that fed on small prey items such as mammalia forms and lizards. The large eyes of this animal, as well as its elongate cochlear canals, indicate nocturnal habits and a strong sense of hearing respectively, traits which it shared with later Alvarezsaurs. While generally considered a basal member of this clade, some recent studies have found the genus to be either a compsognathid or an early ornithomimosaur, although this isn't that surprising, given that basal members of all of these groups would have looked pretty similar to each other. Other putative early Alvarezsaurs include Aurun, from the same fossil formation, albeit of a slightly older provenance, as well as the contemporary Shishugonicus. The placement of both of these animals within Alvarezsauria is not entirely certain, however. Other more definitive early members of this clade include Banicus from the early Cretaceous of Mongolia, between circa 125 and 113 million years ago. Like Haplocyrus, this was a relatively large animal when compared to later Alvarezsaurids, being just over 9 feet long and weighing up to 30 kilograms or 66 pounds. Suggesting that members of this lineage showed a general trend towards decreasing sizes over time. In addition, while the forelimbs were robustly built when compared to those of Haplocyrus, they were nowhere near as specialised as those of the Alvarezsaurids. It was a slender, agile genus, with preserved stomach contents in the abdomen revealing a carnivorous diet. The closely related Chiunicus from western China was quite similar, showcasing an evolutionary intermediate position between the more quote-unquote typical Coelurosaurs and the Alvarezsaurids. While probably evolving in what is now East Asia, these animals would later spread to other continents as the Cretaceous progressed, including a migration into the Southern Hemisphere, in a similar manner to the Megaraptorans and the ancestors of the Unulagians. An early example of this was the genus Alnachetri from the Cenomanian age deposits of the Candeleros Formation of Argentina. Known from a single specimen consisting of just the hind limbs, this small cursorial animal lived alongside a variety of titanosaurs, as well as the massive Carcharodontosaurid Giganotosaurus. Other South American Alvarezsaurs were members of the family Alvarezsauridae proper. These are by far the most well-known members of the clade, and share a suite of derived traits that include greatly enlarged second digits on reduced stubby forelimbs, powerful breast and arm musculature, and narrow tube-like snouts filled with tiny homodont teeth. The hind limbs were long and slender, indicating good running ability. This combination of anatomical features is somewhat reminiscent of modern ant and termite-eating mammals, with it often being proposed that Alvarezsaurids were specialised for consuming wood-boring termites. It's also very likely that they would have possessed elongated sticky tongues to aid in this ecological niche. The group can be split into two major subfamilies, with these being the more basal Patagonichenes, which were endemic to South America. Exactly how and when these animals arrived on the continent is unclear, with there being 4 potential members that were all endemic to Argentina during the Late Cretaceous. The two most solidly defined genera include the tiny Patagonicus itself, as well as its much larger relative Bonapartenicus. The former was native to the Portezuelo Formation of Argentina between 90 and 88 million years ago. It measured just 1 metre or 3 feet 3 inches long and weighed approximately 3.5 kilograms, being about the size of a house cat. It lived alongside the 30-ton Titanosaur Futaloncnosaurus, the formidable hook-clawed predator Megaraptor, and several Ononlagine paravians. It seems to have been the sister genus to the younger and much larger Bonapartenicus from the Campanian to Maastrichtian Allen Formation of Argentina. This animal may have measured up to 3.3 metres or over 10 feet long, while weighing in at a maximum of 72 kilograms or 159 pounds, which is huge for an Alvarezsaurid. It's currently uncertain if there were close relatives of these South American animals dwelling on the other Gondwanan continents. The other major subfamily, the Parvicursorines, were far more species-rich and were native to Laurasia during the second half of the Cretaceous. These were generally the smallest and most specialised Alvarezsaurs, with the recent and exciting description of the genus Manipulonyx helping us gain a renewed understanding of Parvicursorine ecology. Native to the Maastrichtian Nemegt Formation of Mongolia, and living alongside other dinosaur oddballs, Manipulonyx is known from a partial holotype that nonetheless preserves the near-complete forelimbs. And what forelimbs these were! They were robust, short and heavily muscled, as in other members of the clade. The hands possessed 3 digits but were functionally monodactyl, with the second digit being massive and bearing a large stout claw, while the other 2 fingers were highly reduced and tiny. In addition to this, 3 small conical spikes were present on the metacarpus, which probably served to enhance the animal's gripping ability. The hind limbs were long and slender, with Manipulonyx being a fast runner. Given these strange features, as well as the fact that other Parvicursorines have been found alongside fossilised Oviraptorosaur eggshells, the describers of the genus argued that Manipulonyx would have been an overvore, utilising its strong forelimbs and sharp claws to grip and puncture the eggs of larger dinosaurs, before quickly carrying them away to eat in relative safety. This would also explain the tiny teeth of Parvicursorines, as well as their long narrow jaws, being well suited for lapping up the soft nutritious contents held inside archosaur eggs. Whether all members of this subfamily engaged in similar behaviour is unknown, with Alvarezsaurs not having access to eggs all year round, meaning that they may have had to supplement their diet with colonial insects as well. Other proposed egg-stealing Parvicursorines include the genus Chupanicus from the Maastrichtian of Hainan Province, China, which is a truly tiny animal, being among the smallest of all Alvarezsaurs at just over 500 grams or about 1.3 pounds. Additional tiny Parvicursorines included Ceratonicus at roughly 760 grams and Parvicursor itself, both of which were native to the Barangoyot Formation of Campanian Mongolia. The latter animal was once thought to have been among the smallest non-avian dinosaurs, weighing a mere 162 grams or 5.7 ounces, although the Parvicursor holotype is now thought to represent the remains of a juvenile. Regardless, these were still highly diminutive animals by non-avian dinosaur standards, being the ultimate products of several miniaturization events that occurred during Alvarezsaur evolution. We can be certain that these little creatures possessed coats of soft down-like feathers for insulation, as impressions of such structures have been found in association with the genus Shuvuia. This animal had large eyes, as did other Parvicursorines, which indicates that they were probably nocturnal. A 2021 study by Choinière et al. Even suggested that Chevuia had hearing abilities on par with modern owls, and thus would have been an active nocturnal predator, although this has been disputed by more recent studies. This proposition has led to reconstructions of Alvarezsaurs that feature owl-like facial discs, with the most notable being the Mononychus featured in Prehistoric Planet. In the show, this cat-sized desert-dwelling genus is depicted as being a specialised insectivore that utilises its incredible hearing to locate termites hidden inside hollow fallen trees. However, this view of Mononychus may turn out to be mistaken, as more information concerning Parvicursor ecology is revealed, as hinted at with the description of Manipulonyx. It would be funny if these little buggers turned out to have been the main Dinosaurian egg thieves, when we have a whole theropod clade literally called Oviraptorosaurs that almost certainly didn't do what their name suggests. Some Parvicursorines took their extreme adaptations even further, with Linhaenicus being the only Alvarezsaur to have developed forelimbs with single digits. All of the aforementioned members of this subfamily were endemic to either China or Mongolia, although they did spread to other parts of Laurasia as well, including North America. However, only 2 genera have been described from this continent, with both being present there during the Maastrichtian. These were Albertonicus from the Horseshoe Canyon Formation of Canada, which was just over 1 metre long, and is known from multiple specimens that consist of just forelimbs and hind limbs. It's assumed to have been myrmecophagous, feeding on wood-boring termites. The other North American Parvicursorine was the oddly named Trirarchuncus from the Hell Creek Formation of Montana, with its genus title meaning Captain Hook, as in the famous evil pirate from Peter Pan. This was the youngest known Alvarezsaur, living 66 million years ago alongside Triceratops and Tyrannosaurus. Another potential Parvicursorine is also known from this formation, although it's currently referred to only by the dubious title of Ornithomimus minutus. Regardless, Alvarezsaurs appear to have been highly successful animals, surviving until the end of the Cretaceous period in Asia, North America and South America. Originating as generalised carnivores, the group underwent several miniaturisation events and quite radically altered their diet away from flesh-eating. Whatever their ecological niches actually were, whether feeding on termites or stealing the eggs of other dinosaurs, or perhaps both, their adaptations were clearly both novel and effective, being yet another example of the weirdness-prone Maniraptoran radiations of the Cretaceous. Thanks for watching, everyone. The next episode will be covering the Ichthyodectiforms, the formidable carnivorous bulldog fish of the Mesozoic. If you'd like to gain early ad-free access to my videos, as well as to suggest subjects for future episodes, then feel free to support me on Patreon. See you again soon. Cheerio.